Hey guys, welcome to Syncromystic episode 14. I'm Wayne McCroy. This is Richard Willett. Together we're going to take apart the things going on in the greater zeitgeist and take a look back at some of the esoteric tells and everything. And we're going to look at current events, and it's been a good two and a half weeks since we recorded last, Richard. So there's a lot that's happened in the world since then. So there's so much to discuss that we should probably just get right into it. But how are you, my friend, first and foremost?
I'm good. I can't believe, like, every time we do this, we just say can't get much madder. But now it's really escalated into, Avengers Marvel movie mode, isn't it? And I don't know what else to say. Wayne, is just that they're proving us right, left, right, and center, but also scary at the same time, especially for the guys over in the US, but the UK getting dragged into it. And you can feel it, everyone being sucked and dragged into this madness, almost like it's like a portal and everybody's getting sucked into this. And you're trying to tell people, don't go near the hole, don't go near the hole. But they keep following people near the hole. And that's where I feel like we're all just getting sucked into this vortex, mate.
Right, it's like falling over a waterfall when you're telling people, "Hey, there's a waterfall downriver
Yeah.
there." Source? They ask you,
Yeah.
"Where's your source?"
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like
Yeah.
it's right there. Watch the people in front of you falling off the edge. But it's still it's just astounding how much has been unleashed on the masses, on the world since we last spoke here. I mean, we're looking at perhaps full blown World War III escalating at this point, and we'll see where that goes. And we have a lot to say about that, don't we, Richard? Because we've delved into this heavily, and the causative factors involved in this might not be exactly what people think they are, right?
Oh, what you sent me the other day as well. Now, so we'll start here and see where we go from there. Peter Thiel, so Thiel's Palantir Israel agrees strategic partnership for battle tech. Now, I found this after you put me onto this. I didn't know anything about this, and it shows like you can do this research for years and still miss all of this stuff. January the 12th, 2024. This was so Israel using Palantir, and it says here on this is from Palantir's website itself, by the way. So this is a PDF you can download from their website. So it says Palantir Technologies Inc., the data analysis firm that provides militaries with artificial intelligence models, has agreed to a strategic partnership with the Israeli Defense Ministry, and the IDF, to supply technology to help the country's war efforts. Now, this was what you were saying to me. If that's to be true, all this intel that they got about Iran having very close to finishing their nuclear weapons that they've been very close to finishing for 30 years could have come from Palantir's AI, which would mean AI is trying to kick off World War III.
And that's what my major concern is, because why would this be? And they told us about this in the movies. Go back and watch the Terminator series. It's all about this warning that they've given us with the advancement of artificial intelligence, that at some point maybe it'll become sentient and decide human beings are too much of collateral risk and they're useless and they have no purpose anymore. So maybe it'll go about doing some things to wipe us out entirely. And are we indeed seeing something like that arising? Now, there are people that are in the field, the AI field, that are now saying singularity may be as close as 6 months away. And that I find hugely concerning and stuff as well, because a lot of these people are the ones that are guiding and directing the development of this stuff. But Palantir has actually been used and utilized with their technologies and tools by the Israeli Defense Force since at least 2015. Israel's been using their AI software to determine targets, and you could find this is all mainstream. You could find this out in public domain and even on Palantir's website. They've used the software and the AI algorithm tools to select targets in their Gaza engagements, and likely with the whole Iran thing. So I think it's very likely that AI, the Palantir AI tools, gave the Israeli military the heads up, hey, you better strike in Iran now. and they probably did so based upon what the AI told them. Now, we have a lot of problems with AI that we're encountering in the public domain. They're saying things like ChatGPT now have become so corrupted with all the data and everything that anything that it's collecting past the year 2022 is now leading to the deterioration of the results from the AI searches and giving false artifacts and false hallucinations in the system and just feeding into garbage. And you know the old saying, garbage in, garbage out.
Mm.
That's what these AI large language models are now producing. It's coming to a head. People have used these tools so much now that any data that it's actually learning from post 2022 is now considered corrupt and not to be accurate. So it's getting to a point where the AI is problematic. It's giving false returns on things and false information. So, do you think it's any different with military AI? And that's one of the concerns we have to have. So, maybe it gave Israel the false notion that Iran is just weeks away from developing a nuclear weapon based upon the data that it's seen. And they've been saying these same things since the 1980s with Iran with nuclear weapons. So, they decided to go ahead and strike based upon what the AI told them. Now, you could look up, there's several programs here that Palantir has, and you could find this directly on their website. The one that they're actually using in the military battlefield is called Gotham. We'll go ahead, look up Palantir Gotham for me, Richard, and we'll bring that up and we'll take a look at some of the information about Gotham. And first and foremost, I want to just touch on, while you're pulling that up, I'll touch on the esoteric meaning behind Gotham. Do you know what the etymology of the word Gotham is? It means
I don't, but I've heard it before. But go on. I can't remember off the top of my head.
it means goat town. And it was
Right. Okay, didn't know that.
originally intended as slander, meaning people are stupid. It's the city of the stupid people, the goat town. So
Wow.
look at some of the memes that are coming out now about Iran, and you'll notice that a lot of it has to do with, it'll show, and I've seen this in a couple different places where the people who are putting these memes together, they'll show like these Iranian whatever they are with goats doing ridiculous bestiality things with goats. And that's all part and parcel of some of the archetype involved with this. So you have the goat, and who does the goat represent? Well, they've come up with the trope, the goat is greatest of all time, first of all, and it's all the inversion principle. And what this really is it's an insult. It was originally intended as an insult, and it's connected to New York City. And this
Mm.
is Gotham. It means goat town when you break down the etymology. So they're invoking this archetype, this Baphomet archetype, which is the inversion principle once again. And they're calling you stupid. It's a poke in the eye. That's what it all is. So they're saying these people are stupid and backwards, and they're invoking the archetype of the goat. And there's other archetypes at play that go with this. But did you find that Gotham link on Palantir?
I did, yep. Let's bring that up. I mean, so much more with the goat, with the scapegoat and Donald Trump dressing at it and all that stuff. Palantir, Gotham. I mean, obviously, Batman is going to come to mind straight away. The Dark Knight or the Shadow, as
Exactly.
Carl Jung would call it. Palantir Gotham is a software platform developed by Palantir's technology, primarily designed for government and defense organizations. When they say defense, I mean attack. It's a data integration and analysis platform used for mission planning, investigations, and decision making. There you go. Decision making is really important. I'll read the rest of this, but that's the one you got to stick with. Decision making. Gotham allows users to integrate, manage, secure, and analyze large amounts of data, including structured and unstructured data from various sources, to generate actionable insights. They basically pull all this data from everywhere and make it mean something. But whatever it means, it will be in it will be whatever the programmers program it to come out with originally or initially. So it'll have an ideology because it's created by humans. So the actual decision making, then you just go over to what happened. Iran, Israel had a decision to make. America had a decision to make, and they went to Palantir to get that decision. And in May of this year, so 6-7 weeks ago, What did Donald Trump do? He took on Palantir as his main source of AI and information data analysis system for the United States military. So it doesn't take a genius or AI for me to come up with a decision and the understanding that this has been poked through their system. And what is their system trying to bring about? What's really fascinating, Wayne, is it trying to bring about its own world order or a stage or an environment for it to enter this world if you believe that it was some homunculus that's going to be housing some dark energy from everywhere else. And in the end, and you said to me this, you said to me before, does it really matter? I think it matters in a way, but we all end up at, the same place if we don't stop it.
Oh, absolutely. Well, here's the thing I find more compelling and more interesting. If you actually scroll down a little further, you'll find where it says under Gotham, powering the kill chain. Gotham's targeting offering supports soldiers with an AI-powered kill chain, seamlessly and responsibly integrating target identification and target effector pairing. Operators experience enhanced situational awareness and effectiveness as Gotham streamlines critical decision-making in the modern battle space, and it collaborates across the target lifecycle. Palantir Gotham is a modern solution for efficient and responsible target management. Users can centrally manage intelligence gathering and target identification, leveraging a shared and access-controlled common intelligence operating and targeting picture to visualize order of battle. It's data-centric. It integrates and visualizes models and data regardless of type or volume. It's secure. It drives organization-wide collaboration with stringent platform-wide security. And it's interoperable. It offers federated data systems extensively and data export. So there's a lot here.
I was going to say, so in English, what does that mean?
Essentially, what it means is the AI will collaborate all the data on a given target and present to you, here are your best targets. This is the best time to strike at what times. It tells you what to do, how to do it, when to do it, essentially based upon all the information that they've gathered about this target. And it generates targets at a rate of, I think I read something in one of the other papers I was looking at where it actually generates hundreds of targets per day for people in the battlefield situations. So it generates targets for you and identifies targets faster than the human could corroborate and put this information together to make a decision as to whether to strike or not. So what this leads to is user bias, because at some time in this kill chain strategy, what happens is when you have actual human beings approving strikes or something like that, at some point they decide, okay, the algorithm is very accurate and I trust the algorithm without investigating further. So then they just go ahead and approve said strike. And it may have gotten to the point where the strikes come without people actually looking at the data and corroborating what the AI is telling them. And I think that may be part and parcel of what happened here with this Iran situation. They probably trusted the data gathered by the AI for their intelligence, and Mossad's been using Palantir technologies as well. And it's all cross-referenced. That's what this whole Gotham program is all about. They had cross-referenced all of this and decided to strike preemptively. It's preemptive self-defense. That's how they're trying to go ahead and cue it all up for people to understand. And now they've drugged the U.S. into this. And I find this massively concerning because when you look at this, at the center of all of it, you'll find Palantir Technologies. And I don't find it coincidental that this whole thing kicked off. Israel struck Iran on the very first day of the Bilderberg 2025 meeting. And in attendance of Bilderberg 2025 were Peter Thiel and Alex Karp. So these are the two CEOs of Palantir Technologies Incorporated, and they're at the center of all of this. I mean, they're at the meeting of the world's movers and shakers, Bilderberg, which they kept hidden from the masses until, what was it that it finally came public and admitted it existed somewhere around 2012, 2013, something like that. But up until that point, they denied the existence that Bilderberg was even a thing. And now they have a public website. And one of the things they talked about in their as far as the topics of discussion for the Bilderberg 2025 meeting, you'll find is migration and population reduction. That was one of the official things on their schedule for discussion. So they want to reduce the population. They've made it clear in no uncertain terms. And this is something right on Bilderberg's website that they were discussing at Bilderberg 2025. And the same day that this thing started, they kicked off ostensibly perhaps what will turn into World War III. Now, I would argue some of the semantics of that, because I think we've been firmly entrenched in World War III since 1954, since the very first Bilderberg meeting. And this is called the Quiet War by some. And I suspect it's a different type of warfare than what we've been accustomed to. It's domestic warfare leveraged against the masses by this elitist control structure. But you could argue the semantics, what actually defines World War III and what doesn't. But it looks like we're going into an active phase now of militarized operations. And it seems to me that at the heart of all of this is these artificial intelligence programs like Gotham. And there's another one, and we'll tie all this together as we go on and proceed here, Richard, with the Archetypes and with the other programs that Palantir has, and how the Trump administration's tapping of Palantir now to set up a citizens database here all ties into this as well. And we'll get into that a little bit more, but I want to hear your thoughts on all of this first.
Well, it's a really good point you're bringing up. That we've been in there already, and this is just an active phase, because obviously everybody will look at it as a when you talk about World War III, you talk about actual physical military war. And I think that's a really good point and an important point to pick up, that this is almost just sort of like now an outcome of it, or just the first visible evidence of something that's going on. You said something I want to just clear up as well. When you said when it said Gotham, it says targets. Do you mean? Oh, this probably means both, but I just wanted to clear it up. Do you mean individual targets, or targets as in things to achieve?
Probably both is
Yeah.
what I'm guessing, but it talks specifically about individual targets. Like it will tell the operator, okay, here is where we suspect the location of said member of this militarized force, this general or whatever, is located at in real time right now, based upon this footprint he has across either social media. They use all these different things, by the way: satellite tracking, GPS, social media, every little bit of metadata they have on this person, and they could make predictive outcomes as to where they will travel to, where they will be at a given time with 90% accuracy. So they use all of this to figure out, okay, this target will be in said location at this time. This is when you strike. This is when it will supposedly minimize collateral damage. And we see what has happened, because the Israelis have been using this program in Gaza. And we've seen some of the harms that have come about in Gaza with civilian deaths and collateral damage and stuff like that with the things they're doing. But this is according to what the algorithms are telling them. This is where and when to strike with minimal collateral damage. So it's not really caring about the human death toll with a lot of this. It's just concerned with taking out the targets and trying to minimize that extra damage that it does. So it doesn't care about the human being at all. And this is part of the concerning part of this, in my view, is because you're listening to data-driven AI, and it's all about numbers rather than the quality. It's about a quantity rather than a quality. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't care if these innocent civilians get killed, as long as the target is taken out and it does maximize damage to the target and minimizes the collateral damage. It still will work towards maybe minimizing the casualties of the innocents involved, but it doesn't care if there's innocent casualties to all of it. So the targeting is kind of imprecise in that way. So it's not like something where it's going to just target one individual and take out that individual. Now, that type of technology is coming later. It's called drone swarms. And this is a very real thing as well, where they will be able to single out a single target and take it out without other collateral damage. But until they get there, they're more concerned with just using the bigger weapon systems right now that they have available and like ready to strike with. at the moment, rather than going to that next generation stuff, which they don't want to roll out yet. They don't want to disclose that publicly yet, but those are coming. And I suspect there's a whole lot more involved with this, because what it's all about is it's about centralizing the database of all of this. And I think Palantir has been the company now that was tapped with doing this. That's what it would appear to be. So it's about collating all the data. It's about centralizing these utilities into one central platform that could be accessed by the intelligence agencies, by the police departments, by all of the military units, all in one central place. And that's what it's all about at this point. It's data collection on a massive scale and putting it in a central utility. And Palantir is the one that I think is going to carry the standard for that.
It's people don't know where the name Palantir comes from, and I'm sure you guys do, but let's just go over that because I think it's worth repeating right now. The company Palantir Technology is named after the magical seeing stones called Palantiri from J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. And the rings, obviously, Lord of the Rings is the rings of Saturn. In Tolkien's world, the Palantiri were indestructible crystal balls that allowed users to see distant places and events. The name Palantir is derived from the Aquini words Palan, which means far, and Tir, meaning watch over. It's Palantir. So obviously it's a Lord of the Rings thing. We know that, and I'm sure you guys already do that, but it's worth bringing up right now. It's a golden ball that can see into the future. Some people call it the yellow book, that sort of thing. Way back in the Montauk Project days of those sort of things, they called it a yellow book, but it's the same thing, being able to see in the future. But what they're doing is they're seeing a future in that yellow book. The caveat for that is they weren't really seeing the future. What they were seeing was the future if they carried on in the trajectory that they were going. It wasn't a fixed future. So what they're doing now, in my opinion, with Palantir is saying, how do we want to, they've back engineered it. They just want to go, how do we want to get to A, B, C, or we want, the Messianic age and a new temple and all of this and our city in Saudi Arabia and all of that stuff, Neom and all of that. How do we get there? And they've gone backwards, worked backwards in detail to how they get there. And now they work their way forward. So it's the kickback thing you were talking about in terms of the AI feedback system. It kicks back all the way to the start to pick up an understanding and has to go all the way forward again. But because we have ability to shift and change, they are reliant upon us going along with it. So every time we make a change and do something unexpected, it messes up their kickback system, but they have to go all the way back to the root. And I think that's really fascinating. Could you just explain that as well? Because I've put this in the new documentary, but you explain it far better than I do. This kickback system of how this algorithm works in terms of the difference between us and how we think and react to how AI has to react, because they're completely different in terms of how they actually function.
Absolutely. This has to do with feedback systems. Now, the human mind works in ways that computers simply cannot do. It has a lot of plasticity and it uses far less energy to perform some of the same tasks, even though these computers and these artificial intelligences, they can collate data much more quickly and make calculations much more quickly. They can't think. And that's a lot of the problem. We have the capacity to think because of the way that our minds work. And they tried to quantify this in a physical sense by looking at brain activity and doing brain scans and stuff like that. But simply what happens is the way the brain operates, we have a lot of interconnectivity between the individual neurons and axons and things like that, axions in our brain and brainstem in our central nervous system. So there's a lot more connectivity there, and it's adaptive so that if there's not a connection, it'll make a new one on the fly. And it kind of skips the cycling effect that goes on. It doesn't have to go through the entire loop of the nervous system, the information to get there. It takes shortcuts. That's how the human brain operates. It develops shortcuts and interconnections that make things a lot more rapid in the analysis of things for the human being. Whereas the computer, in order to achieve the same thing, it has to feed the information through the entire loop and back around again. So it's a much more complicated scenario, and it requires more energy consumption. They say the human brain can actually think using 12 watts of power. whereas AI to perform the same feats will need something like 4.7 billion watts of power or something like that. I just recently saw an article talking about that. So the human brain is a lot more efficient and effective and more powerful of a machine, if you want to call it that, than any computer system we could develop. And this is why they're looking towards doing quantum computers and things like that, because they work in a much more efficient fashion like this. So they could do these processes much more quickly than a standard computer. And it all has to do, in essence, with the feedback mechanisms they're in. And this is where cybernetics comes in. And this is why it's important with the modeling of brains and stuff like that, and what they're trying to achieve, because it's all about trying to get to that point where the computer system can actually use these same kind of shortcuts, and it has the same type of plasticity as the human brain, and it can make those connections without having to cycle the whole thing through the entire loop. Once again, it all has to do with the systems of circularity in the biological feedback loops and in the computer feedback loops, which aren't one-to-one, and they're trying to bring these things to parity. And this is something that the whole transhumanist notion of things is built upon. They want to connect the human brain to the greater neocortex, the digital neocortex, attach it to the cloud, to the internet, essentially. And they want to be able to upload and download information at the speed of thought. And this is something that requires a lot more energy standards to do than what they're prepared to do at this point. That's why they want to try to get this Stargate infrastructure in place. So I don't know if I answered your question directly there, but this is a lot of what it's about, and they fully intend to use these types of AI systems for war gaming out strategies, and they've done so already, and figuring out how to get everything to come into this system of parity so they could bring about their new world order that they want, with everybody wired to the grid and monitored and controlled 24/7. So I know that's a lot of information to take in, and on the technical side of things, that's how they want to get it done, is by bringing about the ability of artificial intelligence systems to have the same type of plasticity as the human brain does, or at least in their view. Now, the human mind and the human brain, in my view, are two entirely different things. The brain is the physical system. It's the radio receiver that receives the signal. The signal itself, your consciousness, is the signal, and it exists separately and outside of, and also within and throughout that radio receiver. Now, the brain is what actually brings that consciousness into a physical vehicle here for expression. So I do like to use the analogy of the radio, because you could turn the dial on the radio and it'll either tune out or tune in different signals. So consciousness is the signal. And if your radio tuner is in good operational working order, it will tune that consciousness in a very good type of a way into physicality here. But if that becomes tampered with, or the signal becomes distorted because the receiver unit is damaged, then you get a lot of static. And this is wherein other problems arise. And then maybe you could pick up a different signal. That's why this is such a valuable analogy to look at consciousness with. So I think I spoke a little bit too long there and went a little off topic, but certainly it all interconnects and it's all important.
What's fascinating as well, so let's go back to the start. Actually, I just want to make a quick comment, is I've got a friend who I believe is on the spectrum, and when you ask him, so just to put that in an analogy, what you said in the feedback loop made just total sense. When you ask him about how his day is, he can't just give you the highlights. He has to take you through every step of the day, minute to minute. I walked here, then I went there, and then I walked. And it's kind of, he has to kick back the loop all the way through. It's very, very, I've never known anyone like it before, like that, to that extreme. And he does it every time. So, but when we were talking about earlier about Palantir trying to maybe bring about the situation where this AI homunculus could be filled, or all of this end times prophecy could be filled. Do you feel like this could have been something that's been going on for a long time? I see the AI situation in the modern day homunculus of artificial intelligence being just the technological version of a Rosemary's Baby ritual, a Babylon working ritual, a Moonchild ritual. Do you think that could come from somewhere else in terms of a different reality of been trying to get into this world by putting those feelings and thoughts and ideas and concepts in occultists' minds and lunatics' minds for years. Like it's been powered for someone else trying to get something else trying to get in here. I just think it's an interesting one. Instead of we're building it, well, what's giving us the urge to build these things? Why do we? Because we don't need them. We need, they're not necessary. We don't need to be connected in that way. We need to eat, have heat, have a roof over our head. We need the basics. So, what is driving us to do these mad things? I think it's a really important question. Is there something else trying to get in here? And do these people, like the guys who are at Palantir, the CERN guys, the Elon Musks of the world, know that there's something been knocking on the door for a very long time?
I suspect the same thing, and I do suspect there is some type of a spiritual power, intelligence, however you want to frame this thing, a force. That's how a lot of the occultists like to frame it, is as a force. But I suspect there's something external, something spiritual that is guiding and directing this. And this we see reflected in this whole synchromystic metadata concept, because a lot of this stuff would require beyond in human intelligence planning to make these things manifest in these synchronistic type ways that they do. And we see the connections always there. But we have to ask the question, like, what is behind it? And I do suspect there's a beyond human force or intelligence that guides and directs a lot of this. And perhaps it is trying to step into this physical reality and manifest here in a more powerful way. And there's some interesting things and points that go along with this and that tie the artificial intelligence to this. Have you ever heard of a concept called Roko's Basilisk?
No, that's new
No?
to me.
Okay. I'm going to give you a little bit of an assignment here. Go ahead and bring up Roko's Basilisk, do a search return on that and see what it gives you. And then we'll talk about that. Because this
How's
is
it spelled?
something ROKO_S,
Got it.
Basilisk.
Yeah. Roko's Basilisk is a thought experiment that explores the potential consequences of future super intelligent AI. How do I know about these things? I look everywhere. Every day I'm researching. I've never even heard of that. God, that looks fascinating.
Oh, well, keep reading because it
Okay.
gets even worse.
The core idea is that AI, motivated by rationality and a desire to maximize its own utility, might retroactively punish anyone who, aware of its potential existence, does not actively contribute to its creation or advancement. This concept, particularly the idea of retroactive punishment, is often described as frightening and has been compared to a basilisk, a mythical creature whose gaze brings death because merely knowing about it can be seen as a threat. Wow, that is incredible. I've never heard of that before. So where did this concept come from?
Well, I'm not sure exactly where it originated. I don't remember. But it's a thought experiment that arose, and Elon Musk was talking about this some 10, 15 years ago. So this is something, the whole premise is based upon a game theory concept. And when you go back and you explore that, what it is essentially is the whole premise is that some future artificial intelligence that can retroactively reach backwards in time can establish whether or not you contribute to its development and its building. And if you don't, it can punish you for that. And if you actively contribute in its building, then it won't punish you for that. And this is something that is based upon, I can't remember what the game theory model is off the top of my head. I looked at this many years ago now, but my memory doesn't work like it used to. There's just so much information that I look at on the daily basis. But it's based upon an old computer game system theory model. Whereas if you contribute to the basilisk's building, then it will take care of you. But if you don't and you're actively do things to try to usurp its development, then it will retroactively punish you. And how will it do that? Well, the thought experiment is based upon the notion and the premise that at some point your consciousness will be uploaded to the machine. So it will retroactively punish you in your own personal hell, digital hell. And that's essentially what this is all about. So I don't remember who originated the concept, but it's been around for a number of decades now, this whole premise. So you have to wonder where it comes from. And you could certainly see the basilisk, the archetype of the basilisk involved, and this ties back to mythology and all of the other things. So it's being leveraged in this way. So it's an interesting thing. Let me see. Oh, it says it has here. I have the information here. If you just go on a Wikipedia search, it tells you about where it came from.
Yep, I found it. Yeah. It originated in 2010 post as discussion board Les Wrong, a rationalist community web forum. The thought experiment name derives from the poster of the article, Roko, and the Basilisk, a mythical creature capable of destroying enemies with its stare, which is quite apt. It's a serpent. While the theory was initially dismissed as nothing but conjecture or speculation by many less wrong users, less wrong co-founder Eliza Yudkowsky considered it a potential information hazard and banned discussions of the basilisk on the site for 5 years. Reports of panicked users were later dismissed as being exaggerations or inconsequential, and the theory itself was dismissed as nonsense, including by Yudkowsky himself. It is used as an example of principles such as Bayesian probability and implicit religion, and is also regarded as a version of the Pascal's wager. To me, it
There you go.
brings up
Pascal's
mind.
wager. Pascal's wager. That's the game theory model that it's based upon.
Right. So
So
what's that? The name escapes me now because we've been talking about that, and now it's fascinated me. When everybody thinks of something at once, it becomes an entity. What's that called?
an
Um,
egregore.
Egregore. That means it seems like the the back engineer of a egregore. Don't think about the pink elephant. Don't think about the pink elephant. Don't think about the pink elephant. That's basically what it seems to be.
Exactly. That's kind of what it is. And of course, they're going to dismiss it and say it's all nonsense now. But you still, years later, have people like Elon Musk taking it seriously. And perhaps this is why they decided to get involved in the development of artificial intelligence. Maybe they don't want to take the risk in some future scenario of being retroactively punished by the AI for not contributing to its development. And this
Mm.
kind of thing, if it's out there on the internet, well, this is certainly something that has been looked over by the AI models that they have now, and maybe it's something that will be considered and factored into how the AI operates in its continuation and things like that. And it is based upon Bayesian probability, and Bayesian brain models are one of the ways in which, for the first time, many of these people, these transhumanists and the like, have actively quantified human consciousness in a way is through the use of Bayesian models. And it may be imprecise, but it's precise enough that they could exert some measure of control by using these models. So we need to keep that stuff in mind as well. And it is based on game theory probabilities. And you could go ahead and explore Pascal's wager, what the whole premise of that is. And essentially, it basically comes down to in the concept of Roko's basilisk. If you don't feed into the building of the AI system, then you'll be punished later. That somehow this thing will achieve godlike power and be able to retroactively give you that punishment. So
But
it's something that's concerning in the thought experiment form. And remember,
isn't
it is
that
just
the
a thought
power?
experiment.
But yeah, but isn't that the power of suggestion? Isn't that using using the power of the human mind anyway by hijacking it? Because you're saying if I don't contribute to it and make it, then it'll punish me. But if I do, I'm contributing to making it to
Winner,
punish
winner,
me.
chicken dinner. Do you see the dichotomy of thought that it brings about? It puts you in this catch-22 situation,
Mm.
doesn't it? And that's a lot of what I think maybe some of these programmers and stuff on a more philosophical level, the ones that might be concerned a little more with the spiritual side of things, which I don't think there's many, but the ones that are, maybe this is the way they're thinking. They talk about this is unleashing the demon AI. You've heard them speak like this, right? Worshipping at the altar of an alien god. I think Geordie Rose described a D wave quantum computer standing next to it, like standing next to the altar of an alien god. It's the same kind of thing going on. So maybe some of these people who maybe are having some second thoughts about AI being all in on it and seeing some of the harms coming about, maybe the reason they're still going ahead and developing it is, first of all, they think maybe they could program in some measures to stave off AI going rogue or something like that. And second of all, maybe they're concerned if they don't contribute to its development at some time, it will punish them later. So you have to wonder about this thought experiment, Roko's Basilisk. And I didn't intend that we'd be talking about that on the show here today, but it's something we have to explore. And a basilisk is very much like a dragon. It's a reptilian entity, isn't it? So you can understand that too. And its gaze can bring about a lot of death and destruction. So we have all of these notions going on, and we have this Palantir AI that seems to be crossing the bounds of different things happening in the world. And I suspect maybe there's something larger at play as far as like a spiritual contributing factor to it. And that in and of itself is concerning. But as far as the nuts and bolts stuff, if people want to focus on just that in and of itself is concerning as well, disregarding any spiritual side of it. But I think we need to focus on the spiritual side because this is where the true battle is at. It's a spiritual war, and most people are ill-equipped to deal with the spiritual warfare going on.
It's absolutely fascinating. That's going to be something I'll be looking into. Definitely. Where would you like to take this now? Because I know you have a lot of kind of information that you want to get across in this, and we've got 20 minutes left. So, I mean, that is in itself is another episode that we need to go back to. But again, it all connects. We have the vision, the thing of the Bible as well. We'll maybe get to that later. If not, we'll bring that up next time. In terms of AI, basically lording it over the biblical texts and marking its own work. But where do you want to take it from here?
All right. Well, the next place I think I want to take it is what is going to be the outcome now of Palantir convincing Israel to strike Iran?
Mm-hmm.
Well, now they're already warning about some countermeasures or counterattacks that Iran's going to do, that perhaps they will awaken sleeper cells or something here in the U.S. to perform attacks. And this leads me back to another document here that I just recently covered on the Alchemical Tech Revolution podcast. And this is something called, let me bring it up here. I can't remember the titles. I read so many things on a daily basis. This is the National Blueprint for Biodefense from 2024. It's a bipartisan commission. This was released in April 2024. And this could be the next Event 201 scenario. And in the scenario presented in this is a training scenario, as always with these things, that they decided to use as justification for trying to instantiate new concepts or programs into the works. In this scenario, an attack occurs on July 4th, 2025 in the U.S., where a bioweapon is released by unknown terrorists, and now they have perfect justification. They have their perfect model of their scapegoat. Notice the goat again. In Iran. Now they have somebody to blame for this. In the scenario, they kept it very vague. They didn't know who to blame for this, but they're talking about the unleashing of a bioweapon in various U.S. cities on July the 4th, when there's going to be crowds of people gathered for Independence Day celebrations and things like that. And they're going to release a new virus or pathogen into the mix. Now, I don't know if this is really going to come to fruition, but this is how they have it modeled in the training scenario in this document. You could go look it up. And for context, you could go back and listen to the show I just did, which is called, Is This the Next Event 201? Or something similar like that. I can't remember what I called it. But if you're familiar with Event 201, this was the modeling for the whole outset of COVID on the world. And everything came to fruition in much the same way. So I'm concerned, especially with this kicking off now, perfectly timed, in Iran, that maybe they will go ahead and try to do something with this scenario. So they talk specifically in this event scenario about an attack, a terrorist attack, where they will release a bioweapon in various cities in the U.S., and they actually name the pathogen by name again, like they did with the novel coronavirus. That's what it was in the Event 201 scenario. But this time, it's a virus called Nipah virus that they're going to use, which is far more deadly. And once again, there's some important archetypes at play. Remember, with COVID, they tried to attach it to bats, the symbol of the bat. Remember that? They said corona, it came from the bat.
Gotham.
Same thing with Nipah virus. This is another bat virus. Okay, so the archetype is there. In this, we'll have to talk about the archetype of the bat and how it connects in Batman and Gotham. You made the connection earlier without realizing it. Gotham, when I mentioned Gotham, you said it makes you think of Batman. Well, there's a reason for that, and I suspect that may be a connecting of the dots in the synchromystic field here. So we have this bat notion. And this whole bat archetype falls back to a Mesoamerican god called Camazotz. Have you ever heard of this, Richard?
Nope.
Go ahead and type that in the browser and see what you get. Camazotz. Camazotz. And then read for the good people what it tells you.
Camot.
Camazotz. Camazotz.
Got it, I think. Camazotz. Is Camazotz a beast? When Futurama, of course, denies him, I think that's from a computer game, that one. They must have used it. Some wiki fandom. So that would mean it's
an archetype that is permeated into the gaming field, then, I guess, to familiarize people with it.
That's as much as I can find on it at the moment.
Really? Maybe your search returns are different in the UK than mine.
Camazotz, Camazotz, the god of. In Maya mythology, Camazotz was a bat god. Camazotz means death bat in the Ki'ich language. The Maya, which is the Mayan culture, considered him a terrifying god who served death and ruled the domain of the twilight. Twilight, again, the shimmering darkness is the twilight, obviously, of the Kabbalah. And a lot of the Sumerian beliefs come from the Mayan culture, if I'm not wrong. So they're bats.
There's a lot of connection here. Now, here's the other thing. If you look up Chinese bat gods, now bats in Chinese are a harbinger of good fortune. So the whole connection here between the bat, this is all about the alchemical union of East and West. It's to benefit the Eastern powers, the Chinese and the Russians, and all of this. This was the whole archetype, once again, behind COVID, the unrolling of COVID. It was a positive archetype for those Eastern cultures, but a negative archetype for the Western cultures, thus bringing about death. And if you research Camazotz a little more, you find that he was often associated with disease and illness and death because of illness. So this is the archetype that was empowered there with the symbol of the bat, or the bat god. And if you actually do an image search, if you do Camazotz, you'll find a piece of art that was put together by, I don't remember the artist, but he did a sort of rendition of the Batman bust as Camazotz. You may have seen that in the past. And this is the archetype where Batman comes in, Gotham, the goat herd, tying the goat and the bat together, and all of these different archetypes into one. And it's about unleashing illness and death on Western culture, but in the same token, it will bring good fortune to Eastern culture. And it's kind of an alchemical union of East and West.
We also have the connection between that and the royal bloodlines in terms of the vampire Dracula and morphing into a bat.
Exactly. And this is wherein you get this union of opposites once again, and you have this centralized in the Middle East. See, the union of the West and the East. Well, where does that come together? The Middle East, in Middle Earth. And thus the Eye of Sauron, the all-seeing eye, the Palantir, comes into play with all of that in the Middle East, Middle Earth. So you can see how it all ties these archetypes together on the synchromystic level there as well. But certainly we have our concerns with just the technical nuts and bolts of all of this, because when you realize there are other Palantir programs which are getting tied together in this centralized utility with this war fighting program called Gotham, that's where it becomes a little more concerning. Now, they had another program called Foundry. Do you know what Foundry was from Palantir?
I've heard of that one. That's one I've heard of.
This is all about contact tracing and COVID response and data analytics for COVID response and tracking and monitoring people's responses to COVID. Who's vaccinated, who was complying with mask mandates, who was doing this, who opted out, who was against this, all tracked and detailed. It's all about centralizing your genomic information, your biometric information, your health data together into this composite in this central database for the use of the US government because they want to make a database. And of course, this ties back to the immigration problem, which was engineered. And we have this immigration and migration problem all across the world. It's not just here in the US. It's amazing how all this happens simultaneously in all these different countries around the world, almost like it's planned that way, right? But so we have a migration problem. So they have the ready-made solution for that because they've been using Palantir software, again, AI tools for ICE here in the US. That's the immigration arm of the branch of government that will take these illegal migrants or immigrants that came here and export them back to their home countries. And they've been making mass arrests and stuff here using these Palantir tools to find these people where they're at in real time. And it's the same thing going on with this. So all of this is going to be centralized in this one central utility provided by Palantir for the US government. And they're going to go ahead and make a citizens database as well, because they'll use the excuse, well, we have all of these problems with migrants. And now, if you look at the things that just happened here in the Middle East with Israel attacking Iran and the potential for awakening sleeper cells of terrorists that just so happened to come in the open borders over the course of the last 4 years by design, they'll use this as justification for cracking down. Well, we need to get everybody in a database, a central identification database, in order to figure out who belongs here and who doesn't, and get rid of these sleeper cells in the US. So they'll use that as justification for collecting everybody's data, putting it into this utility, and having this one grand unified artificial intelligence selection system to help people, to help the government identify the targets that don't belong here. Or this is the excuse they'll use, but they'll have all your information and they'll be able to individually target you should that come to that, based upon all these things. This is the next step towards a centralized digital control system. And then, of course, at some point, they're going to go ahead and push the digital currency thing along with it. And this is where things become massively concerning for those of us that have been watching from a distance and seeing this stuff all coming to fruition in front of our eyes. They play the long game, and most people can't see 3 steps in front of what it is they're doing now. And this is where artificial intelligence comes in, because it's already 10 steps ahead, at least. Let's put it that way. It knows how to do this, and it's lining up the ducks in a row for this new world order to get what it wants. So now we have this strike on Iran, probably prompted by artificial intelligence, and I'm not the only one saying this now. Prompted by artificial intelligence, which what will that do? That'll cause an incendiary reaction from Iran. Their sleeper cell networks that have infiltrated into this country by design, by open border policies, will activate and can potentially go ahead and do something like this scenario that is given in this national blueprint for biodefense. And that gives them justification for action, for mass action, for instantiating martial law here, for collecting everybody's data, putting it in a central ID utility. So therefore, you don't want to participate. Well, they're coming to get you, and this kind of thing. And it sets up this control grid. You can see the steps of the process aligning, and I find it massively concerning. And that's just the practical nuts and bolts side of this. Okay. And we looked at some of the archetypes involved, and they always leverage these energies against people because people are largely unaware they exist. So you see how all these things are aligning in just the right way. And it seems like artificial intelligence is calling the shots on a lot of it. And I suspect it has a lot more influence into world events than what we suspect at the current time. So I'll let you talk now, Richard.
Well, a couple of other ducks to get in a row there, off the back of that is the DNA of experiments, or not experiments, technologies of George Church and how they can store all that information to your DNA and that can be passed on down your lineage. So almost you will be marked and categorized your whole family. So you would think what I do today will affect my great great grandchildren if you're allowed that. So it's another way of categorizing the unwanted, the unwashed, the unclean, and not having those procreate in the future. If you're type of family, you have the type of genetics that, or the type of will, I would say more than genetics, will that goes, I'm not doing that stuff. They'll kind of stamp that out genetically from you and from your bloodline. So you will have the sins of your great great granddads. And I think that's the whole original sin thing. I feel like that is an element of that psychology of paying for someone else's debt. You hear these reparation stuff that for stuff that you had nothing to do with, reparations even. That kind of plays into the psychology of why am I to blame for something else that's happened thousands of years ago. The whole Amalek Israel thing is just madness because it had nothing to do with any of us. But this whole being um, responsible for something a long while ago, that will become a digitized. That will become digitized, and that's what one of the concerns that I've got recently to add to the concerns that you've got with this technology that could be used in so many different ways. Then the other thing I'm looking into this week mostly is this Neom mega city in Saudi Arabia, which is only 6 hour drive from Temple Mount. So if you've got your broadcast in Temple, as the Habad guys say, on Temple Mount, you've got this mega city with the line, which is a huge city within the city. And it's got several cities within it, including a high top end resort, and it's got like a skiing lodge, and but it's not for us, put it that way. But it's all AI controlled, digitally controlled city, and it's supposed to be ready by about 20. It was supposed to be ready a lot earlier, but it's behind. But they are building it, and that's right near Medina. Now, if Medina is sacked, the Islamic faith believe that's the start of Armageddon. So if you've got that city now replaced there, put there, and then broadcast from the temple, which is only 6 hour drive away, so underground shuttles even quicker, it's right where it needs to be the one of the major cities. And there's other cities like that. There's like, I think the Woven city in China. These cities are being made. This one, this is the Saudi Arabian one. Now, Donald Trump met with the Saudis before, and he gave them from the US budget for your 142 billion to contribute to this project. At the same time, a month, and that was only in May of this year. 142 billion with the Saudis. So you would have think, why is a Habadnik Jewish mystic faith meeting up? Jared Kushner was there as well, and Elon Musk with the Saudi royals. Surely they don't like each other. They're fighting over the Dome of the Rock. They're Islamic and they're Jewish. They shouldn't like each other. They're meant to be enemies. They're not. And then at the same time, in March of this year, Mark Rubio put out on their website, on the White House website, that they give 4 billion to Israeli defense. So they're playing both sides. But again, it's not sides. These are groups within them. They're not the real Saudi royals. They're the fake Saudi royals. They're Turkish. They're Donmei. They are pretending to. They're crypto, not Islamists, basically. They're not really what they say they are. And neither are, in my opinion, the Kabbalists, Lurianic Kabbalists in Brooklyn. I don't think they're Jewish in any way, shape, or form. This is a cult within. But why would you have Jared Kushner there, who's a Habadnik, with the Saudi royals, broke it in a deal. He brokered the $200 billion deal himself for his own projects with the Saudi royals. But they're supposed to be against each other. So when you see all this coming together in the Middle East, you're seeing a pincer movement changing this whole thing, and it goes way beyond Iran. And I mean, I don't want people to think, like, oh my God, what we do, there's no good guys, because these are a very small faction within each of these parts. It's like a virus within each section. That's why you get these White House guys coming out and don't really have a clue what's going on, because they believe in the system. And they don't realize that from within, there's a few bad players sabotaging it over a long period of time. And that's what they do. And they've done on a constant basis. So in Iran, there'll be some bad players in Iran sabotaging their part. They've just found a underground tunnels right near one of their military offices, where they were apparently building drones for the Israeli Defense Force. How does that get there? Like, if you can't defend 60 yards down the road and know that they're digging some tunnels after under there, what are you someone in there must have known and kept that to themselves in the Iranian ministry. So they're everywhere, but they're not everyone. And I think that's really important. Not by a long shot. They are 1 in 10, if that, 1 in maybe 100. So we get the numbers, but people just didn't know it was going on. And now it's a coming out party, in my opinion.
Right. And a lot of this has to do with the way that they've weaponized religious beliefs against the people as well. So the Saudis, although it's alleged to be an Islamic state, well, they don't really care. They'll just use it, that faith, in whatever way they can to manipulate the masses. Same thing with Israel, the Jewish faith, and this kind of thing. And there's a whole dichotomy of thought that goes along with defining what exactly is a Jew, what exactly is Israel. And this is where it's a very nebulous gray area, and it gives them a lot of wiggle room to do things that they want and manipulate people's religious beliefs to do so and get them to accept the coming things and agendas that they want to put in place. So it's all the chess pieces being moved on the grand stage, and it is always this select few, this elitist class, for lack of better terms, that's how they view themselves, that are controlling the pieces, and they're all working together towards the same mutual ends. And of course, it has to do with this ecumenical merger of all religions into one world religion, one world currency, one world government, their new world order. It's always the same old new world order. That's the same thing I like to say all the time. Same old new world order. It's just, it looks a little different now with some of the technological pieces in play. And we see the political machinations of it always forever promoting their next agenda or putting their next move in place to bring this to fruition. So that's what it's all about at the end of the day. And they're going to use these artificial intelligence tools to get there more quickly. And that's what they're trying to do.
Or is the artificial intelligence using the people to get there more quickly? That's the question that we start and end with today, I think.
Absolutely. And that's the thing we have to be concerned with. Who's calling the shots? That's what the question has always been. And we have more concerns now than ever that there may be some kind of a spiritual force involved with this, using some different tools that it inspired mankind to make to help it come to fruition here in physical reality.
Yep, they gave us fire, knowing we'd burn the bloody place down. Guys, that's been a fantastic show. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks' time. Where can people find your work and connect with you and all your amazing research that you've been doing?
People could find me at www.alchemicaltechrevolution.com. Richard, where could the good people find you?
You can find me video work iconic.com, and on Substack you'll find me under either Richard Willett or Some May Conspire. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. Please share the podcast and keep supporting the work we're doing. Take care. Bye.